refer to evidential mediumship and the evidence that makes it so, we can't overlook how being in the essence of the communicator impacts the communication. Now, yes, this comes through clairsentience, and there is a completely different video on that. But to be in the essence of a communicator, a real person in the spirit world, we first have to understand what that means.
That essence gives you understanding of who they are. It helps you understand their personality, their character, all their traits. And it's really important because as you understand that personality and how they interacted in life and how they were that character to other people, you get that image within your mind, you get that sense of who they are. But it also gives you the intention when they communicate with people, how they interact with people sociably, but also those people that are personal to them, their families, their children, because we have different interactions with different people. And being in the essence of that communicator helps give you that understanding.
What does it mean to be able to sense the personality, the characteristics, the impact of the story, the intention of the evidence, to be able to capture a lifelong history of what made them who they are? This can only come when we surrender to being with them. As we understand, the soul is the medium, and therefore the soul is also the communicator. In the spirit world, the spirit person shares their soul with us, shares their dreams, their wants, their thoughts, their emotions, their memories and experiences. When we are fully engaged in being active in that process, then we are in the essence, we are in the power. Not just the power of ourselves, but the power of the spirit world. When we have combined the two, we're able to sense exactly what that person in spirit is endeavouring to share with us. There'll be no guessing needed. There'll be no interpretation needed. And we'll be able to move from statements such as, I think, or would you understand, to, I know, I feel, I sense. Because we are understanding what our soul is picking up.
So if we think about the people that we interact with, from mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters maybe, sons and daughters, but then you've got friends, then you've got acquaintances, then you've got work colleagues and peers and employers. We all have different interactions with them and different relationships with them as well. So that personality and character is vital, because once they start presenting their evidence, you have an understanding how to present it to that recipient, because your evidence to a child, their son or daughter, will be different to their boss. That interaction and the things that they say and how they say it will be massively different. So being in the essence of the communicator helps you really understand their story being brought forward and how to interpret that story. Because it's not what it means to ourselves, because if we see one thing, we can get a certain impression. But when we're in the essence, we get their impression of how they saw it, how they understood it. And that is factual evidence to that person that is in front of them. How they interacted with a work colleague will be different to how they interacted with a partner. Those things that we don't say to people, what we might think, with a partner, we say them. So, and we think them, and we're allowed to, because that's who we really are, deep down in that essence of the character of our being.
But I would imagine that they have to accept all of their frailties, all of their strengths, come to terms with all of the experiences, good or bad, to be able to share them as evidence, to say, well done, or I'm sorry, or I'm with you, I love you. Without that, we are left with just information, names and addresses, and something about and connection to. It's when we're in the essence of that communicator, when we are in the flow, when we are in the power, that evidence flows to the point where the contact comes alive. We can see through the eyes of the person.
And it's important as a medium that we understand that, because evidence is just information unless it's understood. You can hear the terms, you would understand that, that would make sense to you. Would it mean something? All the questions, all the things as a medium we don't want to do. We need to tell the story of life. And if we think about the things that we enjoy, such as films or books, in our spare time, they have a story, don't they? But it's not just information, it's actually an intention, a purpose, a passion. You get to understand the character in those films or books. We get to understand the personalities and how they interact with other people, or the actors within the films, or the characters within the books. But when they visit certain places, or where they go to certain places, locations, you know how they're going to act within those places because you know their personality and character. So mediumship is no different. As we get to understand the essence of who they are, we get to understand in each of those moments how they perceive them, how they interact, how they engage with other people.
We can feel the expression of emotions from the person. We can live their experiences. For that moment, we become them. Our mind alters to an altered state of consciousness so that we can perceive a world that is invisible and yet very much present. When we can accept that that world is contactable, all we need to do is surrender.
It is really important as a medium that we really understand the concept of what the essence is and what the essence does for us. So we know that it gives us understanding of who they are. We know that it presents their evidence in the way that they need it to be presented, as it's their story, as it's their loved one or friend or colleague sat in front of you. With that understanding and how that evidence sits or how it comes through on the impressions of the mind or the soul, the emotions or the physicality of the body of the medium, then we get that full understanding of what it is and how to present it. We know then how it's going to land with that person in front of you. And having those understandings actually sits within the essence of who we are, the medium. As we deepen that insight into the essence of the understanding, we lose self. We become that person. We see the world through their eyes. It has a prolific effect upon us, not just in the moment of the communication, but afterwards, how we reflect on those moments that were shared. We feel their joys, we feel their sadness, we feel all kinds of a range of emotions.
Being in the essence means giving up the need for us to know where it's going, giving up the need to understand what's being meant. It's a very difficult thing if we have our sight for us to have to close our eyes and walk around a room being led by somebody else, being told when to step up, when to step down, and when to turn around. But in some ways, this is what it's like with the spirit world. We are, in all essence, blind to the journey they're about to take us on. They know where they want to go. All we need to do in some ways is to close our eyes and sense what they're meaning, what they're sharing, what emotions come with it, which tells us how they're feeling, and then all the other evidence that we're probably looking for, the more objective evidence, such as the names, the addresses, the occupations, the experiences and the memories, are there. But they are there on the journey that the person in spirit wishes to take us on. We might be asking for that way before the person in spirit is ready to introduce that as evidence.
So as a medium that's wanting to develop to the best of their ability and potential, then we must understand how important being in the essence of the communicator is, because it builds confidence, it builds a power within you, it removes all self-limiting beliefs, it removes all barriers, because we're engrossed in a story, just like that good book or the film. We're captivated, we're sat on the edge of our seats, getting the next step, if you will, of their life. It is almost like being in your own book or your own film every time that we communicate on behalf of somebody. And that's the beauty of mediumship. We lose ourselves, we immerse ourselves in that communicator, understanding everything that they're bringing forward, living their life, bringing them alive. And for me, there's nothing greater than watching a medium bring that person alive and seeing their whole demeanor change, their body language, how they interact, the mind's quick-wittedness, the sense of humor, the emotions that are on show. For me, there's nothing greater than seeing a good medium work that's deep in the essence of that communicator, that loved one.
If you were in the spirit world, who would you rather work for? Somebody who followed your lead, or somebody who gave you a list of things that they needed before they would work for you? I know which one I would prefer. Being in the essence means giving over the need to know and trusting in your ability as a medium. Trusting in your ability to work through the training you've had, the formal training that forms the foundation on which you then deliver your mediumship. The formal training only goes so far. Being in the essence of that spirit person, who they are, is where the rest of that evidence lies.
Being in the essence of the communicator breeds confidence in the medium. It fills you with a belief inside. It helps you get over all those insecurities that we may have as that medium. Who's looking at us? What are people thinking? Am I good enough? We lose ourselves in the reality of that loved one and how they perceive life. And if we tell their story, we don't have to worry if it's good enough, because in that moment they share what they need to share. And that's the intelligence of the spirit world. That's the intelligence of that communication and that loved one that's bringing their evidence forward. They know what that recipient is going through. That's why they've chose to communicate. They know what evidence to bring, what personal memories to share, because they know it will sit with that recipient, their loved one, profoundly. It'll touch a space within their soul, within their hearts, and within their minds, leaving no doubt that their loved one is communicating, because that's what evidential mediumship is all about. But it also inspires through that evidence.
It's critically important that we have mediums that can deliver heartfelt, emotional, and objective evidence. Because one day, you and I are going to want to communicate through a medium. I know what kind of medium I would like to work with. I'd like to work with the one who follows my lead, who can share my truth with those I love that live on in this world.
We can all sit on the sidelines and say what we think is good evidence, but it's only knowing what that loved one is going through in that moment, having the mindset and understanding of that recipient and what they are going through to really understand the beauty of that communication. There's always going to be somebody sat in the cheap seat saying, well, that could have been better. It should have been more evidence. But actually, for that recipient, it was the greatest evidence. It was the greatest understanding, because those memories of that loved one were brought in the way that was needed to in that time. So we can never, as a medium, judge good evidence. It's only the recipient. But if you want to be that best medium that you can be, being in the essence helps you achieve that potential. And it also helps you serve the spirit world to the best of your ability. And it also helps you serve humanity, to be compassionate, to be inspiring, to bring peace and understanding. What a whole different world this will be if every medium worked within the essence of that communicator, because it changes the essence of that person sat in front of you.
Being in that essence is the magic where mediumship happens. But you don't have to try. Being in the essence is all about being, not trying. You try to do anything, and the natural ability to do that thing dissipates and diminishes. When you trust the naturalness of who you are, the naturalness of your personality, characteristics, you will trust your mediumship. When you do that, you will be able to pick up, perceive, and understand a person in spirit and give their evidence in their way, to tell their story, allowing somebody here in that moment to feel reconnected in a memory. That's what mediumship is about, reconnecting people. There's nothing more magical than a person in spirit sharing a memory and the person here remembering that memory, and two souls for that moment are in the same memory and emotional expression. That's where the healing happens. So allow yourself to move to a place where you surrender and allow and trust. That's where your mediumship lies.